The number to call in is 888-898-2525. That's 888-898-2525. Now, here are Phil, Chris, and Pat with tonight's edition of Sports Talk.
All right, welcome in, everybody. Sports Talk Media Network on a Wednesday night. Great to have you with us. Phil Kornblut and Pat Daniel from our studios in Columbia, and Chris Bergen from the Berge Palace in Sardis. And our phone number is 888-898-2525. South Carolina Education Lottery, lucky number for you here on the program. We'll take more phone calls tonight as we work things in through our great lineup of guests tonight. Steve LaPrade, the legendary football coach down in Charleston at Fort Dorchester, who announced his retirement yesterday. He'll join us, talk about his career, both as a football coach and a wrestling coach and everything else that he's done in high school. He'll join us at 6:30. 7:05, Matt Ward, MJ Ward from up in New York at the PGA, which begins tomorrow. And then 7:35 tonight, it's an SC Wild night with Major Billy Downer, and we'll be talking about boating with Memorial Day weekend right around the corner and safety on the lakes, the rivers, and the good old Atlantic Ocean out there along the coast of South Carolina. So a great lineup for you. We'll update some recruiting, update some other news notes of the day. And let me begin by saying, if you're keeping up with the NCAA men's golf tournament, it just ended a few moments ago up in Salem at the Cliffs at Kiowee. Clemson and Texas A&M were in a playoff for the fifth and final transfer spot to the NCAA championship, and Clemson fell short. Texas A&M wins in a playoff. The Tigers shot 13 under today to get to 29 under. They had to come up a little bit, and they did, and they rose to a tie for fifth with Texas A&M at 29 under, and they went to a playoff, and all five players play in the playoff, and each plays a separate hole, and they all play at the same time. So 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and then you have your score against par, and the best score against par, that's the winner. And Texas A&M did that, and they will be one of the five teams advancing from this regional. Georgia Tech, Arkansas, North Carolina, New Mexico, and Texas A&M are the five. Georgia Tech, 53 under par. They were 21 under par today. Arkansas at 45 under, North Carolina 43 under, New Mexico at 42 under. As for the medalist honors, it goes to Ryan Burnett of North Carolina. Rounds of 63, 68, 68. He wins by two shots over Furman's Sam Lape, or Lapay. I'm going to say Lape. 15 under. He shot a 64 today. He went 65, 72, 64. That's some good playing. Kean Rose was Clemson's best finisher, a tie for eighth for him, 11 under par, 68, 70, 67. So Tigers gave it a good run, came up through the pack, come up just a little bit short. So, Chris, that just leaves us now. And also, of course, Furman was in this regional. I should mention Furman. The Paladins did not factor in to the end there or anything like that. Though they did finish 10th, and they did shoot 7 under today, and they did finish at 12 under, and they finished 10th overall. So now we look ahead to the women's championship. That's next up next week out in Arizona, and we'll have South Carolina and Clemson participating in that.
How do they determine who plays what hole against whom in the playoff? Do you know?
Yeah, the coaches decide. The coaches.
Okay, so Jordan Bird had a chance to look at the 5 holes and determine, all right, I've got my power guy. I want to put him on the par 5. Got a guy who's much better with his irons. He'll play the par 3, that type of thing?
Yeah, I'm sure there's strategy. In fact, the final score, I'm just seeing it now, Texas A&M won the playoff by a shot, 2 under to 1 under. So their 5 guys played those 5 holes at 2 under, and Clemson's 5 guys played the 5 holes at -1. So they lose by a shot.
I still can't get over the scores, though. The last couple of weeks in the NCAA tournaments, both on the women's side and the men's side. I mean, when Georgia Tech goes below 50 under par, much like the Stanford women did last week, I'm an advocate, as I mentioned yesterday, to put Beth Page Black back on the rotation for the NCAA tournament. Let's toughen these golf courses up a touch.
Make it
Good
fair.
grief.
Let me give you the winners of the other regionals. the winners of the other regionals. So the Auburn regional was won by Auburn by a shot over Vanderbilt. Auburn finishes at -1. Vanderbilt finishes at even. And so obviously those two are moving on. Chattanooga, Ohio State, and Colorado State moving on as well out of that regional. Actually, you know what? Let me hold on a second before I speak too soon. They're in a weather delay. So they just have recently resumed. So it's not quite done yet at the Auburn regional. But Auburn looks like they're in good shape there at -1. All the top 5 teams are in there. In fact, the top 9 teams are in, and everybody else is late. So I don't think there's going to be any change. Auburn, Vanderbilt, Chattanooga, Ohio State, and Colorado State will advance from there. In the Bath regional, that just sounds weird. Where is that? That's in Bath, Michigan. Georgia wins that regional, 29 under. Illinois, Oregon, Florida, and Texas also advance. The Las Vegas regional, that's the regional you want to be in. They're in a delay, a lightning delay, and they have not restarted. Talk about scores, Chris. Arizona State is your leader at 59 under par.
Oh, my gracious.
Stanford is 57 under. Virginia is 49 under. And then it's tight. You got San Francisco and East Tennessee State at 44 under and Northwestern at 43 under. And those three all have some holes, all have 2 holes left to play. So the last 2 spots will come from those 3 schools, San Francisco, East Tennessee State, and Northwestern. Then you've got the Morgan Hill Regional, and that is being led by Mississippi State. Let's see if it's over. Looks like it's basically completed. Yeah. Mississippi State at 1 under, then BYU, Florida State, Baylor, and Pepperdine. Those will be your 5. And, the thing is, these scores are so funny. I mean, here you got the winning score is -1. And the other place was -59. I mean, it's got to be conditions and course, I guess, right? It's got to be conditions and course.
I would hope so.
Yeah. I mean, that's just crazy to have that kind of a swing. Then you got the Norman Regional, Alabama at -28, Oklahoma, Colorado, Texas Tech, and Duke. Looks like everybody is in there. So those are your 5 there. Alabama, Oklahoma, Colorado, Texas Tech, and Duke. And then we told you about the Salem Regional. So I think that is that's pretty much everybody. So there you go. And Clemson again comes up just short in trying to make it to the NCAA championship. All right, baseball. An off day today, and then the last games of the regular season tomorrow, and then on to the tournaments. South Carolina last night lose. Clemson last night wins. Tigers have won 9 in a row. They are just tearing the cover off the baseball right now. Just tearing the cover off the baseball. And South Carolina had offense last night, but again, well, they had good pitching over the weekend. We can't say again, but last night they threw 8 pitchers at Charlotte, and 5 of them gave up runs. And the Gamecocks, they had the early lead. They lost it. They called up with a home run. They fell behind again and could not catch back up. That's 3 losses in a row to Charlotte for the Gamecocks. On top of that, they have more injuries issues. McGillis re-injured his forearm. He's day-to-day. Veach hurt his hip pitching. He's day-to-day. Jersenbeck, Mark Kingston said today, definitely out for the rest of the season. Elbow issue with him. So the injury situation continues to be a problem. Though, again, day-to-day, maybe there's a chance these guys can come back this weekend against Tennessee or at least be healthy for the tournament. But I wonder about now, and Mark Kingston saying all the right things about mindset and attitude and all that, but man, once you lose it, Chris, it's sometimes hard to get it back. The Gamecocks had it there at one point. I mean, when they beat Florida, they looked dominant. They looked just like a dominant team. And say what you want to say, injuries, poor pitching, poor overall performance. They've lost it. They've lost that little it factor they had going for them. Can you get that back?
It's an interesting question, and I liked your point a moment ago about Mark Kingston saying all the right things. I will take that a step further. Last night, if I'm a Carolina fan, I'm disappointed that he didn't come out and get a little harsher with his baseball team. There are certain times to coddle them. There are certain times to love on them. And his approach this year, and he's been open with us when we've had him on the program, Phil, talking about he's changed his mindset. He wants the kids to have a lot more fun. And clearly it worked. 3/4 of the season, there were very few teams that I would think put on the field with South Carolina Gamecocks couldn't beat. But right now they are in a slump of epic proportion, and now might be a time to kick them in the backside. And I go back to what Gary Gilmore said after the Clemson game last Wednesday, when his team was just embarrassed by the Tigers. Of course, Clemson's doing that to everybody right now. And Gilly came into the postgame and basically told us exactly what he said he told the team. And he said, guys, I just want you to get out there and compete. We didn't compete. I'm not looking at a moral victory that we got enough runs down the stretch against Clemson that it'll look competitive, which it wasn't. He said, if we go out this weekend, and they were going into their series against South Alabama, he said, if we go out there this weekend and we compete, and I feel like our guys are putting forth the effort and we lose, I'm okay with that. And then he went a step further, and this is what I'm talking about. It might be time for Mark Kingston to come out, maybe through the media, and kick his guys in the backside, because Gary Gilmore said bluntly, he said, I don't want to just go to a regional just to be in a regional. I've been doing this long enough. I want to go to a regional to win a regional. And this is coming from a guy who's presently coaching a top 10 program. He said, Phil, they weren't good enough at that time to win a regional. You haven't heard anything about that from Mark Kingston. And I think it's time to turn the switch a little bit on this program, because how much are they using and it's a valid reason. It's not an excuse. It's a valid reason. But how much are the injuries now as much a crutch, if you'll pardon the pun, as much a crutch for them when we don't have all our guys? That explains why we're not winning. Mm-hmm. It's not going to matter in a couple of weeks. You need to get them back. And Kingston talked today about they've got 16 days until the NCAA regionals start, and it looks like they're going to prepare to get everybody healthy and ready for the regionals and not necessarily worry as much about the SEC tournament next week, at least reading between the lines. But I would have loved him to come out and maybe change his tone just a touch, and maybe he has behind closed doors. Mm-hmm. But this team needs some sort of change, and whether it be attitude, whether it be effort, I'm not sure what it is right now. But you can't get swept in a regular season by Charlotte. You can't drop a game to North Florida when you're trying to host a regional for a team that at one point in time was a lock to host a regional and maybe a top 8 national seed.
Yeah, and speaking of Coastal, they won last night over North Carolina. And now, I mean, you really, when it comes right down to it, if Coastal, Clemson, and South Carolina have a good end of this week and then have a good showing in their respective tournaments, I mean, how can you not place regionals at all three? How can you not reward all three for what they've done all season long? I mean, when you got 3 teams, and I know it'll look funny, look kind of top-heavy to have 3 regionals, 3 of the 16 in one state, but I mean, if you deserve it, geography shouldn't be a factor, and whether your neighbors are hosting or not shouldn't be a factor. If you deserve it, you deserve it. And all 3 of these teams, if they hang in there and they're in the top 10 of the RPI, and they either win their conference tournaments or get to the latter stages, they deserve to host based on what they've done all season long.
Absolutely. And that is one thing Mark Kingston talked about again today. He's laying out the reasons why his team should host, and they're very valid. Talked about all the metrics, top 5 in RPI, top 5 in strength of schedule. You know, they played the most difficult, according to him, they played the most difficult conference schedule of all the teams in the SEC. South Carolina played the most difficult. I'm assuming that's based on winning percentage in the conference and having to face teams like LSU and Arkansas from the west side of the coin. So, I mean, they've done enough, you would think, to host. They're just not playing very well right now. And I go back to Gary Gilmore's comments. Are they going to be happy just to get into a regional, or is this a team that, because of what they've done thus far, are they good enough to win a regional, advance to a super?
Yeah. All right, a big story around here, besides what's going on with baseball and everything like that, ACC wrapped up their spring meetings, and there's still a league. Okay, there was not a mutiny. Okay, all that smoke and all that fuming. The Magnificent Seven turned into the Seven Dwarfs, apparently, when they got inside the room there, and they got probably called on the carpet by the commissioner. How dare you talk like you're going to leave our little league? But they are all together, and they went over their issues, and various reports are saying that there'll be some modification to the distribution plans for the money, and the teams that are earning the money will get more of the money. But it's still, I mean, the way I see it, it's still going to fall short of what your competitors are making in the SEC and the Big Ten as things stand right now. So, I mean, they really did not, from the standpoint of changing up anything from a major standpoint. It doesn't look like they accomplished anything like that, other than possibly putting in this new distribution plan that will appease Clemson and Florida State, I guess, Miami, I guess, if they ever really get back at a high level. If Florida State is truly back on the national scene this year, who knows? People think they will be. The way they finished last year, they won 10 games. They got their quarterback back. They got other good players back. Maybe they will be a contender. North Carolina was a fraud last year. Even though they got a great quarterback, they were a fraud. They're going to be a fraud again this year. Well, South Carolina exposed them in the opening game. Do they deserve to get, bigger money? Who deserves to get the bigger money? How do you decide who gets the bigger money? And then, let's swing it around the other way. You're going to give Duke and North Carolina and Virginia, the top basketball teams, more money for going deeper in the NCAA tournament than the rest of you, when that's usually the case. So I'm assuming, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm assuming that's going to be balanced out that way, right? Wouldn't you think?
Phil, I don't know how a conference can legitimately look all of its members in the eye and say, hey, we're all in this together. But, hey, by the way, Clemson's going to get all the football money because they've got the best football program. North Carolina and Duke are going to split the amount of, and throw in Virginia. They'll third a piece of the money because they're the ones who represent us in the tournament. And then in baseball, we're going to give it to Virginia because they've won a national championship, and Wake Forest will get a good bit because they're the number one team in the country. I don't know how that flies with the majority of your league, but is there a better way to do it? The SEC seems fine with cutting checks, equal checks to every team in the league and every school in the league. But we're talking apples to oranges when we're talking about the revenue that the SEC is bringing.
It doesn't sound like much of a league to me. It sounds more like an alliance than it does a league.
And where have we heard that term before?
Exactly. That's why I bring it up. So I don't know. We'll see where this goes. There's still more meetings to take place. Now, you got the SEC baseball tournament cranking up next week, and then the SEC spring meetings in Destin will be following. And, of course, they'll be sticking their chests out. Here we are, the big bad SEC. And you can make fun of our silly slogan, but you know what? We're proving it. It does mean more to us because we spend more money. We get more of the great athletes. We pay them more. And we have the biggest television contracts. We have the biggest stadiums. Our basketball's as good as your basketball. We're better than everybody else in practically every sport. I mean, think about it. The SEC is probably better than everybody else in all of the major level sports. I'm not talking about your field hockey and your water polo, and leave those to the Stanfords and the Connecticuts of the world. But you know what I'm talking about. They're clearly, they've caught up in basketball, if not surpassed everybody, right? They certainly have caught up in basketball. And that was a big push a few years ago to get better coaches and to improve SEC basketball. They've certainly done that. Mm-hmm. And of course, football, baseball, women's basketball speaks for itself. Track and field, I think the SEC probably is, because they have so many great athletes, it's probably the supreme track and field conference in the country. I guess maybe out west you might have an argument there a little bit, but
Arkansas might have a thing to say about that at the table. But you're right. I mean, the SEC excels in a lot of it. It's almost like if they put their mind to being good at a sport, ultimately they'll be good in that sport. And going into the NCAA tournament in basketball, I think I even made the comment. The SEC looks like they could win both titles. As good as Alabama was playing, and certainly as good as South Carolina's women were playing going into the tournament. You thought they might bring home both championships. Didn't pan out that way, but they were certainly the favorites going in.
Yeah, Pat, what you got?
I want to back up just for a quick second because you guys may not have seen a Pat Forty article in Sports Illustrated. Came out about an hour ago. The ACC is not as unified as maybe we're being led to believe. And taking a step back, David Hale was first reporting that the ACC asked if the athletic directors wanted to release a joint statement, essentially showing their unity. Multiple ADs, assumably part of that Magnificent Seven or whatever, immediately shot that down. No one's going to, quote, offer more money unless a school is cleared of these rights. So they have agreed that until they figure out a way to leave the conference, there's probably not going to be anybody trying to do so. But Florida State AD, Alford said, quote, we've crossed a bridge, but there are still more bridges to go. Then within this article, a and I hate these unnamed sources, but an unnamed anonymous source said, quote, "We are not unified. We are not unified until someone offers," no, I'm sorry, I just butchered that. Apologies. "We're not unified. We're only unified until someone offers a school more to go somewhere else. Everyone will immediately grab it." That doesn't sound like a whole lot of unity there.
No.
They went on to say the current ACC status is, quote, "situationally and temporarily unified, with all parties trying to make the best of the current arrangement while eyeing the exit doors. At least they're upfront about it," end quote.
Yeah.
Just some interesting thoughts there. But I mean, it really does seem like they're all just saying one thing publicly and another entire thing privately with their attorneys.
Right. And I think that the stories we had going into these meetings about the 7 schools looking outside and getting information about how to break the contract with the TV rights, and is it a breakable deal, and where they could go. I mean, I really believe that was taking place. I really believe what the Florida State was it the president or the AD a couple of months ago who put the ACC on notice about Florida State. I think it was the Prez. And I really believe what he put out there. I usually go by what you say the first time around. That's what you really mean. Now, after you've had a chance to think about it and be scolded by people, and you decide to apologize or change your words, okay, well, you're doing that for calming the peace. But what you really mean is what you said the first time out of the gate there. So I really believe that Florida State, their president, believed what he said when he talked about the idea that Florida State needed more money to stay in the league, and there needed to be some change in how they were going to be handing out this cash.
And that was back in February. And you were right the first time. It was the AD, Michael Alford. He said, quote, "Something has to change." He was talking about the revenue share, and he specifically said, quote, "Florida State contributes approximately 15% of the value to the ACC. So why shouldn't the Seminoles receive a larger cut? They currently only get estimated 7% share of the revenue."
How did he come up with that arbitrary number that Florida State contributes 15% to the ACC? Is that based off television revenue? Is that based off bowl trips? How do you come up with that and say, we contribute more to the league than anybody else, even though we haven't won a national championship in anything recently?
Great question.
I would say bowl money, over the years, bowl money, and they've made some deep runs in the NCAA tournament.
Sure.
They were good.
And their softball program's solid. I mean,
and baseball was really good until this year. First time they're going to miss the tournament in 40-something years, I think. So all that is contributes to the kitty there, so to speak. So and of course they have the big stadium like Clemson does. They have the second largest stadium in the league behind Clemson. Clemson seats 81,000. I think Doak Campbell seats about 78,000, right? So I mean, ticket revenues and just money that they contribute. I mean, they are one of the big daddies, and they want to be paid that way. And they look around, they see what Florida's getting every year. Clemson sees what South Carolina's getting every year. And now they see this contract that the Big Ten's put together involving 3 networks that's going to pay them an ungodly amount of money and be distributed among those teams. And it's all leaving the ACC behind right now. The Pac-12's got their issues. Big 12's got their issues. But the ACC looks at itself as one of the movers and shakers, and they're being left behind by those other 2 big leagues right now. So that's what they have to address. And look, the ACC's in transition. They're leaving their longtime home of Greensboro to move to Charlotte to be in a more media savvy market and a bigger market. And, I guess they feel like that's going to help them in some form or fashion. Could you ever imagine the SEC leaving Birmingham for, say, Atlanta? I know Atlanta's probably tried, but they'll never leave Birmingham. I mean, their roots are too deep in the state of Alabama, and they'll never leave Birmingham, no matter what no matter what Atlanta would throw at them. All right, got to hit a quick break here on Sports Talk. Steve LaPrade coming up on the other side. We'll be back.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. on 107 The Point.
And here's tonight's forecast. Cloudy overnight with low dipping to 63. Big change from today's heat to tomorrow as our temp rises, but to a high of only 70. We'll also have a 60% chance of some showers greeting your drive to work for Friday. We start off cloudy and maybe wet, but the sun will break through for a nice afternoon with a high of 82. Brian Leonard with your On Point local weather.
Hi, I'm Thomas.
And I'm Mary Catherine.
From Louisiana Purchase. We serve authentic New Orleans cuisine, like fully dressed po' boys and muffaladas with olive salad.
Hey, tell them about Cypress Corner.
Red beans and rice, jambalaya.
Where we have local art, home decor for every season.
And we do catering and charcuterie boards.
Thomas, the gift shop.
Okay, honey. While you're there, check out Cypress Corner, our in-house art gallery and gift shop.
It's so cute. You've got to come see it.
Louisiana Purchase, St. Andrews Road in Irmo, and at louisianapurchase.com.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters reporting an Islamic extremist was given 10 life sentences and another 260 years in prison for killing 8 people with a truck on a bike path in Manhattan. The judge called this crime among the worst, if not the worst, he'd seen. Federal Judge Vernon S. Broderick announced the sentence Wednesday after Sayfullo Saipov spoke. Saipov said the tears of his victims and families of those who died were minimal compared to the tears and blood of followers of Islam killed unjustly. In March, a jury rejected the death penalty for the Uzbekistan citizen and one-time New Jersey resident. Montana has become the first state to completely ban TikTok. Republican Governor Greg Gianforte signed the legislation Wednesday. The measure is more sweeping than bans put in place in nearly half the states and by the U.S. federal government. More details at srnnews.com.
Dave Ramsey here. Do you want your money to work for you rather than you working for your money? Go see my friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. They're not a mega bank and have been serving the Midlands since 1936, offering good old-fashioned customer service and free services. They'll look out for your financial well-being. With 14 locations, check them out today at palmettocitizens.org. Federally insured by the NCUA.
Pardon me, ma'am. Are you interested in lowering your energy usage and saving money?
Make it quick.
Did you know that Dominion Energy offers heating and cooling rebates up to $750?
That's a lot of money.
Yes, it is. And it comes in handy if your system fails and you need a replacement.
Any restrictions?
For starters, your new equipment must be Energy Star qualified.
That's a good thing.
Go to DominionEnergySC.com and click Save Energy.
DominionEnergySC.com it is. Thanks for the tip.
Certain restrictions apply.
It's May. It's always a great time to show love to our fur babies. May also includes Be Kind to Animals Week. The Columbia Animal Shelter encourages you to adopt a dog or cat in May. And from the 8th through the 13th, you can adopt for only $5. Go to petfinder.com and choose your newest family member. The weather is great. It's a perfect time to bring that puppy or kitty cat home. Be a hero. $5 adoptions from the Columbia Animal Shelter. Visit petfinder.com and be kind to animals.
Hi, this is Kevin Cohen. The Point is a unique radio station. We don't have a bunch of huge corporate sponsors, and we're not a part of a local group of 5 or 6 corporate radio stations. We're a locally owned and locally operated station. In fact, we're a family. We think community first. We're all about local. And if you're a small business owner, well, it'd be my honor to sit down with you, talk about growing your business with the help of The Point. If you've never considered radio advertising, well, it works, especially talk radio. Our listeners trust us. They trust and they support our advertisers. You'd be surprised just how affordable running some ads on The Point can be. So let me put something together, a customized package that fits your needs, your budget. I'm not corporate. I'm just Kev. Call me, 563-8558, or email me at kev@makethepointradio.com. That's 563-8558, or my email address, kev@makethepointradio.com. Let's sit down. Let's talk about partnering up. Let's talk about seeing if we can grow together.
It's the Cigar Militia, Columbia's premium cigar store. It's that time of year. It's golf weather. Are you going golfing this weekend? Be the guy bringing the sticks, not the guy that borrows. Come by and refill your humidor or just pull off the interstate for a smoke and a cold beverage. Our friendly and knowledgeable staff will help you. You can be a novice or a seasoned veteran. Our friendly staff will walk you through the humidor and answer your questions. We're at 1410 Colonial Life Boulevard, next to the Melting Pot.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Sports Talk Media Network from Columbia and across the state of South Carolina. Phil Kornblut, Chris Berget, and Pat Daniel. We'll get to some phone calls coming up and a bunch more to come your way tonight here on Sports Talk. Let's welcome into the program somebody I've admired from afar for decades because he's just been a great football coach and wrestling coach, administrator, teacher, whatever else you can do in a lifetime career working in the school system. Yesterday, he announced he's stepping down as the head football coach at Fort Dorchester High School in Summerville, one of the big schools in the state, one of the power programs in the state. We welcome in Coach Steve LaPrade to Sports Talk. Coach, it's great to have you. How are you doing today, sir, the day after?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good to you.
Did this come up on you quickly? I saw you a couple of weeks ago at Newberry at the Founders Leadership Conference, and we were talking about things. Looked like you were getting ready to go for another season. When did this come up in your mind that it was time to step down again?
Well, I can't say I hadn't been thinking about it. I've been thinking about it for a while. I'll be 68 years old in August. In sport, things are changing. A lot of change over the years in football and sports in general. And me and my wife had talked about it quite a bit. And it was just, you just,
tell you
as
what,
you get older, you just.
Coach, we've got a bad connection with you because we're losing you about every other word. Let's reconnect. Coach, if you'll hang on, we're going to call you back. See if we can get a little better signal. Thank you. Yeah, because we're not catching you. We're not catching your words. So we'll call you back here in just a moment. Talking to Steve LaPrade down at Fort Dorchester. As you know, back in January, he resigned under pressure because of a locker room video that surfaced of the coach yelling at his players. Oh, my gosh.
Heaven forbid.
The coach yelling at his players. Parents and fans responded with protests to the district. He was ultimately reinstated as the head coach. And the thought was he was going to continue and be back to lead the Patriots. He led them to the state championship game last season, won 170 games, won a state championship just a few years ago, back in 2015 with the Kerryon Joyner at quarterback, has produced a large number of college football players and coaches back with us now. So I'll ask you again, kind of give us the background on how you came to this decision this time around.
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about it for a while. As I said, I'm going to be 68 years old in August, on August 2nd, and it's I love coaching ball. I love being around the guys, the kids, and the coaches, and it's just, I don't know. It comes a time where you just know it's time. Things are changing. Things are changing at Fort Dorchester. Things are changing in football in general, and athletes and everything else. I'm sure you hear this everywhere you go. And it was just time. I mean, I really enjoyed it. I could still do it. It wasn't that I didn't enjoy doing it. I just didn't enjoy doing it as much. And as you start getting toward the end of your career, the bad thing for me is you hate those kids that you're leaving. And my wife, she said, no matter when you do this, Steve, it's always going to be the same. Yeah. You're always going to have those players you hate leaving. So I feel good about it. I'm just ready to move on, do some traveling, do some, it takes some time. Football's not easy. I mean, it's a full-time job. These guys, that are highly successful in high school and college, man, they put some time in. It's tough. It's tough to be good all the time. It's hard. It's hard to win all the time. Yeah, it is.
And that's expected down your way with the program that you have built. Let me ask you this, though. Guys your age, you're 68. You're an old school coach. I mean, you came up coaching football, playing football, knowing the game a certain way, and you came up coaching players a certain way and expecting players to behave and react a certain way. But it's a different time in every aspect of of athletics. And how much of that, the way kids are today, the way they react to coaching, the way they react to direction, the way they react to punishment in some ways, how much of that played a factor in a decision to step down?
I don't know. I guess I'm in a lucky spot. I've never had problems, discipline, or players not listening to me. I'm old school. I still coach old school. My guys still, honestly, I told somebody yesterday, I said, if we had to play Friday, we need to put the kickoff return in, but we could play a game on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
We practice all year long. Our kids work hard. We're all about physicality. We're kind of old schoolish in a way. But you're right, across the board. As I've gotten older, the college player thinks he's a pro. The high school player thinks he's a college player. And, as far as these kids jumping around and going to schools, obviously I've been on the receiving end of that because a lot of kids move in to play ball for me. I don't think it's the greatest thing in the world. Some of these kids now in high school think they're in a portal. They just get up and move and go somewhere else, and the parents are the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's tough. It's changing. Obviously we're a very heavily recruited school, and I get to meet all the big time guys and the Power 5 football coaches that come in, and it's a different game. It's nobody tries to build a program in college anymore. It's just trying to win this year and then worry about next year. I don't like that. I'm all about team. I'm not about I. We at Fort Dorchester, it's always been about the team. I've been very fortunate to have some really, really good players over the years, but they always put Fort Dorchester first before them. And that's getting, as you said, I know you deal with this stuff every day. You're a sports guy, and it's getting tougher.
Yeah.
It's getting tougher on coaches, and I've seen. I called it 2 or 3 years ago. I said you're going to see such a high turnover rate in coaching, it's going to scare you. And I don't really keep up with it that much, but every once in a while I look, and it seems like a lot of coaches are getting out of athletics.
Yeah. Well, just down your way, you and Jerry Brown now going out at the same time. I mean, that really changes the complexion of football coaching in the Charleston and the Summerville area.
It does, because Jerry was like, I stole 75% of my coaching ability from Jerry Brown's and John McKissick's and Chuck Reedy's and Ray Stackley's, and I mean, I was a young buck, man. I watched what made those guys successful, and I mean, I'm gonna tell you, I stole it from them, and that's what I put, and hopefully, you don't have a whole lot of that left, and I think it hurts football in general, interstate. Tommy does a great job, and up at Dutch Fork, and Mark Barnes, I think, does a great job. A lot of the old guys. I used to be the young guy. Shoot, man, I'm the old crow now. I'm the old dude. I did my last interview last night. It was funny. I looked out there and I told all the reporters, the sports guys, I said, golly, I've watched you guys grow up. I said,
oops. Our cell drop.
Yep. It was funny. It was that part. I'm going to miss the competition. I'm going to miss the tough times with the kids. When they come in, they got family problems and they got this and that. You feel like you can help them a little bit. That part I'm going to miss. But, the new job I got, it's kind of one of my job to make all 3 schools a whole lot better in athletics. I think I got a lot to offer there. 90% of the coaches at Summerville and Fort Dorchester and Ashew Ridge either worked for me or played for me. So, that's kind of the plus for me. I'll enjoy the new job, and I think I left Fort Dorchester in a better place than when I got there, and I think that's what anybody can ask to do. That's kind of what you want to do, and I feel good about our team. I feel like I got them ready. And Josh Smith, he played at Clemson, and he's my offensive coordinator. I think he'll do a great job as interim coach, and hopefully they have a great year, and he ends up taking it over next year, permanently. He's a really good guy. Yeah, he's from the upstate. Yep, good guy.
Talking with Coach Steve LaPrade here for a couple of more minutes. And have you heard from many of your former players like DeCarrion or John Simpson or Carlos Dunlap? Any of those guys had a chance to get in touch with you?
I have, and it's tough. They all call it the chair. Carlos Dunlap, coach. Who's got the chair? I said, Carlos. It'll be okay. To carry on. And Byron Maxwell and Johnson. They've all called me, and they're happy because it's that crap that happened earlier with me in the year. That wasn't my decision. This is my decision, and they're happy. For me, they are. They know the time that I put in it, and golly, I enjoyed. I can't. I wouldn't take one single second. Even the couple thumpings I got from Tommy, I wouldn't take any of it back, man. It was all a blast. It was all a blast, and I'm gonna try to make some other coaches a little bit better, in the area, and just maybe travel a little bit more with my wife and get to see my grandson play and do some stuff. So I'm excited about it. I feel good about it. That's the good thing. I do. I feel good about it. I think I made the right decision. I think I made it at the right time. I talked to those guys. I talked to Jerry Brown. I talked to Ray Stacker. I talked to those guys. And, hey, how was it the first year? And it was, well, it's tough, but you'll get over it. So,
well,
I'll miss it, but, I feel good about it. I won a few games and, did some stuff decent, and, I think it touched some kids' lives, and shoot, man, that's all you can ask for. Hopefully they'll put that on my gravestone one day. Yeah.
Hopefully many years from now. Listen, we appreciate you being on with us, and good luck to you. Glad that you could go out on your terms, and you got a position to still continue impacting people down there and the kids down there. And we congratulate you on a sterling career. Look forward to seeing you at a football game this coming season and any other place we might run across you. We really appreciate it.
All right, Phil. Appreciate y'all.
Always good talking to you, Coach. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. Steve LaPrade, really one of the best, and we wish him well. 172-70 in 20 years at Fort Dorchester. And John Bagwell, if I remember correctly, John Bagwell was the first head coach there, I think. Played at Furman, great running back, was killed in a car wreck. It's going off a very shaky memory here. And then I think Coach LaPrade took over and just did a great job. Just did a great job there at Fort Dorchester. Okay, we got to go to a break, and we will come back and take some phone calls. 888-898-2525 is the number. South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number. More than $572 million in lottery proceeds since 2002 have been used to fund Palmetto Fellow scholarships for the state's college-bound students. Learn more about the lottery's impact at seeducationlottery.com/education wins. Playing for fun is a win for education. Back in just a moment.
Hi, this is Billy Downer from South Carolina Department of Natural Resources. Are you looking for a safe place to shoot your rifle or handgun? Did you know that the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources operates 4 manned ranges across the state in Pickens County, Spartanburg County, Richland County, and Charleston County? For more information on our public ranges, visit dnr.sc.gov/shooting.
Hi, I'm Jim Corbett. I've been an attorney for more than 30 years. There's one thing I've learned about injury cases. It's you need the personal touch. You need the lawyer to get to know you and describe your damages. You don't want a case manager talking to an insurance company, and then talking to you, and then talking to maybe to a lawyer with limited experience at the last minute to try to settle a case. I talk to you. I find out what your case is about. Jim at JimCorbettAttorney.com. Jim at JimCorbettAttorney.com for your injury cases.
Parents ask, what's the best way to save for college? I'm State Treasurer Curtis Loftus, and my answer is always open a Future Scholar 529 college savings account. It's easy. You can get started online with any amount. It's flexible to adapt to your child's college dreams. And you can deduct 100% of your contributions from the South Carolina state tax return. So what are you waiting for? Go to FutureScholar.com and see why it's the smart, easy way to save for college. FutureScholar.com.
Hi, this is Major Billy Downer, and coming up tonight at 7:30, it's another edition of SC Wild from the Department of Natural Resources on the Sports Talk Media Network.
Founders Federal Credit Union knows your life is busy and your money is important. We are proud to offer local personalized services and convenient online services like Founders Online and the Founders app. You'll love being with us as much as we love serving you. Visit relaxjoinfounders.com or one of our 37 convenient locations to see if you qualify for membership with Founders. Relax, win with Founders. Terms and conditions apply. Founders Federal Credit Union is federally insured by NCUA.
Hope, life, and the Great Palmetto. What do these things have in common? Scholarship dollars. The SC Hope, the Life, and the Palmetto Fellow Scholarships are funded by the lottery players of this great state. And after 20 years, you've invested over $7 billion in education. $7 billion. Impressive. The South Carolina Education Lottery. When you play, we all win.
Thanks again to Coach Steve LaPrade for being with us here on Sports Talk. We have lost Bergie for the night. Internet issues there in the PD area. Well, if he paid the bill on time, maybe they wouldn't cut his line. But just kidding. No, they had an issue with the internet service where he is, and thus it has cut his line to us. So does not look like it'll be back up and running before the show is over. So we'll just press forward with Pat and myself here at our studios in Columbia. And you on the phones, we go to Hank in Columbia. Up first tonight with us here on Sports Talk. Hank, welcome in. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, Corn. I enjoyed the interview with Coach LaPrade. That was my weightlifting coach in high school.
Oh, really?
At Somerville. Yeah, he did. He ran one of the weightlifting rooms over at Somerville when I was coming through.
How about that?
And John Bagwell was the first coach at Fort Dorchester. John actually was a classmate of mine at Somerville. John was a running back at Somerville.
Yeah, what a great football player he was, man.
His dad was big. Dad Howard Bagwell was the athletic director over at the time Baptist College before it changed to Charleston Southern.
Yep. I remember John mostly from Furman, where he was a great running back for the Paladins. And yeah.
Oh, he was a heck of a fullback coming out of Somerville. Back in those days, we ran that wishbone. And Coach McKissick's his thoughts were always, I'll throw the ball when somebody stops that wishbone, but not too many people stop that wishbone.
I miss the wishbone. I miss the running game. I miss running backs. But, I was thinking about this, Hank, to shift gears. South Carolina. By the way, Dante Miller is not going to be playing this year at South Carolina. Apparently, he's gotten word. He put on his Instagram that he would not be playing this year. I reached out to him. He said he'd get back to me once everything was in order. But apparently, he was seeking another year of eligibility, so apparently that did not come through. So that's another running back out of the running back room for the Gamecocks. And I was just thinking last night, the heck with the running game. I mean, yeah, you got to run it some, but look at those tight ends and receivers that you've got with that quarterback. Just run 5 wide and throw it all over the ballpark. I mean, air raid it, and then sneak a run in here and there. But that's where your talent is on this football team is going to be at the receiver positions, whether it's tight end or wideout.
Yeah. And I think they'll get out. I think some of those guys are running back will step up. I mean, you just don't make it. It won't be the feature part of the game. I think the feature part of the game will be in the air, and they'll be able to offset it. But John was a good guy. Hated when he passed driving back from Walterboro that night. But when y'all were talking earlier, in terms of the ACC, with them trying to seek that alliance, that alliance really has got to take care of Florida State and Clemson. I understand the Virginia Techs and all that other stuff, but the problem is, if you looked at the projected revenue for the SEC, within a couple of years, Clemson and Florida State can't be trying to compete against all the teams in the SEC that are dragging in an extra 30 or 40 million, especially in this day of NIL and players hopping, because you can't keep up with the arms race. And I think that if they offset it with the money in football, they'll probably have to try to do something in basketball for those top tier schools, because you don't want all those schools. I mean, that grant of rights, and they can pound their chest about that grant of rights, whoever did it. But if Clemson, you don't want Clemson and Florida State in football to fall back to the pack, because then you end up with what the Big 12 was. When Texas started to have its struggles, Oklahoma was still getting it done, but Texas was having its struggles. So if you have them fall back to the pack because they can't keep up money-wise with the Ohio States and the Alabamas and stuff of the world.
Well, I got to say this. I got to say, tell me if you agree with this or not. I know you're not a Clemson guy, but if you're a Clemson fan, you got to be worried about Dabo Swinney's thinking. Let's face it, Dabo Swinney runs the ship over there, right? He runs everything.
Yeah.
And Dabo is he's got his ways. I'm not going to say he's stuck in his ways, but he's got his beliefs. And of course, he's on record as saying if they ever start paying the players, he would walk. Well, of course, they're paying the players. I'll be glad when we get to the point when we stop playing this ruse of NIL not being the same thing as paying players. I mean, it's paying players. Let's just call it what it is. We're paying players. Whether the money's coming from the fans or it's coming from a business, it's going to the players for the sole purpose of playing the sport. And Dabo is and other people around him, and I think people who support the program are of a belief that Clemson has such a culture that they can overcome that by just being Clemson and trying to recruit players and families by saying, come to Clemson, you'll get some money, but it's more about becoming the whole person, the complete person, the Christian person, and playing high-level football. Yet you're going up against equal programs who are throwing the cash out there left and right and aren't hiding it. And I mean, human nature being human nature, how many great athletes and families are you going to find out there who might want to be made whole, but also want to be made rich? And made rich sort of comes first. So my point is Clemson going to fall behind in recruiting? And I'm starting to sense it, and I've said it repeatedly on this show. I think they are falling behind. Yeah,
it's already happening, Phil. Look at the skill people that they're missing out on. Clemson used to rack up skill people, and now every time they're in those final 2 or 3, you're seeing them going to the Ohio State, to Alabama, where Clemson was getting them.
And they're belly aching. Those like I like to call now the inside sorcerers, they belly ache by claiming the other schools are doing more on NIL than Clemson. And that's my point. You can't sit back and be out NIL'd in this day and age. And I'm worried for Clemson fans that the carpet's going to be pulled right out from under you here because of the unwillingness to play the game the way the game is being played at this particular time. We got to run to a break, Hank. Thank you. Be right back.
By the way, before we do what's supposed to happen here, thank you for pushing the button. I thank you. Programming thanks you. America thanks you.
WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
Grills, outdoor kitchens, and fireplaces. Spring Sizzle starts with Bart. This is 107 The Point.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting. Talks between Republicans and Democrats over the debt ceiling are continuing in the wake of a June 1st deadline. Republicans are demanding spending cuts in exchange for raising the debt ceiling. South Dakota Congressman Dusty Johnson says President Biden must move to cut the nation's spending.
Inaction and intransigence will not wipe away $32 trillion in debt. Good grief, Mr. President. When is enough enough? Shame on anyone who refuses to act.
President Biden is heading to Japan for the G7 summit, but he promised to be back to wrap up negotiations. Legislation banning most abortions after 12 weeks of pregnancy is becoming law in North Carolina. As protesters boo in the gallery of the North Carolina General Assembly before Tuesday's veto override, Republican State Representative Dr. Kristen Baker speaks in favor of Senate Bill 20.
It balances protecting the life of the unborn child. It balances that with a woman's need for life-saving care.
Republicans were able to override North Carolina Democratic Governor Roy Cooper's veto of the bill. Florida is banning transgender care for minors effective immediately. Republican Governor Ron DeSantis signed a series of bills on Wednesday addressing drag shows and how schools handle the use of personal pronouns in bathrooms. Planned Parenthood's offices immediately started canceling appointments for puberty blockers and hormone treatments. A good day on Wall Street as the Dow was up by 408 points. The Nasdaq rose 157, with the S&P 500 advancing 48. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Relief Factor, pain relief that's natural, pain relief that works, and pain relief that attacks the source of the pain. That's the experience of tens of thousands of Americans who are taking Relief Factor right now. See their incredible video endorsements at relieffactor.com and then order your 3-week quick starter pack for just $19.95. That's less than $1 a day. Find out if it can work for you like it works for me by ordering your 3-week quick starter pack today. Relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com. Be the next success story.
The Angie's List you know and trust is now Angie, and we're so much more than just a list. We still connect you with top local pros and show you ratings and reviews, but now we also let you compare upfront prices on hundreds of projects and book a service instantly. We can even handle the rest of your project from start to finish. So remember, Angie's List is now Angie, and we're here to get your job done right. Get started at Angie.com. That's ANGI, or download the app today.
6. Britain's Parliament building is an architectural masterpiece, a UNESCO World Heritage Site visited by 1 million people a year. But it's also a crumbling structure at risk of destruction. Correspondent Charles de Ledesma reports.
In a hair-raising report, a House of Commons committee says the seat of British democracy is leaking, dropping masonry, and at constant risk of fire, as well as pocked with asbestos. Inhaling asbestos fibers can cause lung diseases, including cancer. In the most urgent in a series of warnings, the committee says renewal work had been painfully slow and mostly amounted to patching up the 19th century building at a cost of about $2.5 million a week. The committee adds there's a real and rising risk that a catastrophic event will destroy the building unless thorough restoration work is accelerated. Charles de Ledesma, London.
News and analysis at townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
And here's tonight's forecast. Cloudy overnight with low dipping to 63. Big change from today's heat to tomorrow as our temp rises, but to a high of only 70. We'll also have a 60% chance of some showers greeting your drive to work for Friday. We start off cloudy and maybe wet, but the sun will break through for a nice afternoon with a high of 82. Brian Leonard with your On Point local weather. WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
Grills, outdoor kitchens, and fireplaces. Spring Sizzle starts with Bart. This is 107 The Point. Please press button now. I said to, genius.
Welcome back to Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network. You can reach the guys with the South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number, 888-898-2525. That's 888-898-2525. Now back to Phil, Chris, and Pat with the second hour of Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network.
We are back with you on Sports Talk here on the Sports Talk Media Network in just a moment from up at the PGA Championship in New York. MJ Ward, Matt Ward will be joining us. Want to pass along a couple of other notes from the day. And we got SC Wild coming up at the bottom of the hour, recruiting between MJ and that. Poll question of the week, Clemson, how far in the postseason do you expect them to go? 405 votes now cast. 46% say regional only. 39.5% super regional. 14% say the Tigers will make it to the College World Series. Sources confirming to 24/7 Sports, North Carolina guard Caleb Love is no longer transferring to Michigan, and he is back in the portal, John. All right, as you heard earlier on the program, Clemson lost in a playoff to Texas A&M for the fifth and final spot in the Salem Regional. So the Tigers' men's golf season over. Pitchers announced for USC-Tennessee series. Only one Gamecock starter announced. It'll be right-hander Eli Jones going tomorrow night for the Gamecocks TBA for the next two games. And as Mark Kingston said today, he met with the media after last night's game, no new update on any of the injured guys other than to say they're day-to-day. And McGillis is day-to-day. Veach is day-to-day. Jersenbeck is out for the season with an elbow injury. And let's see. Also want to mention to you that there's something else I want to pass along. Let's see. What else do I want to mention? A couple of other things. Arkansas second baseman Peyton Stovall out for the season. Surgery on a torn labrum. Fairfield Central put out its football schedule for the coming season. Our good buddy Chris Deering retweeted this, noting that on the schedule, Fairfield Central noted they have Gray Collegiate on October the 6th, but they put a TBD by it, as in, I guess, to be determined. Remember, the principal there at Fairfield Central said his teams don't have to play Gray Collegiate if they don't want to play Gray Collegiate. So we'll see if that happens. The entire Texas Tech baseball team will sign 5-figure NIL deals with the Matador Club Org. That's a collective for a Texas Tech student athletes. They become the third Red Raider team to be signed to a team-wide deal. So every member of the baseball team will get a 5-figure NIL deal. I mean, that's about 27, 30 players getting 5 figures. That's good money. I mean, it's not 6 figures, but 5 figures. What, 25, 50,000, 75,000? Projected regular season football win totals for Bet Online. Clemson, over under of 9.5. They opened at 10.5 in 2022. Coastal Carolina, over under of 8. They opened at 10 last year. South Carolina, over under 6.5. They opened at 6.5 last year, so no change there. Okay, some notes I want to pass along to you tonight here on Sports Talk. Let's head up to Rochester, New York, where the site of the PGA Championship is for this year. We welcome in our good buddy, Matt Ward, MJ Ward, international golf writer of acclaim, on the scene for the PGA Championship. Welcome in, sir. How are you?
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you guys from nice and toasty Rochester.
How toasty is it?
Well, let me put it this way. As cold as it was at Augusta for the Saturday round, it was bone-chilling this morning. I bet you the temperature probably was in the mid-30s at daybreak, and I don't think it was more akin to a Buffalo Bills game than a PGA Championship. I'll put it that way. So if you've ever seen a Buffalo Bills game at Orchard Park, which is about 90 miles west of Rochester, It was really frosty. There could be a frost situation tomorrow morning, and I don't think temperatures are going to really jump noticeably right away. It's going to take a little while, but in the morning tee times, let's just say you're going to have probably as many mittens as you will golf gloves.
Wow.
I mean, you're going to have to be ready to rock and roll and deal with the but the rest of the week it should improve, and there may be some showers on the weekend, but it'll be interesting. It's great to be back in Rochester. I've been at every major event that's been up here since the '89 U.S. Open, and it's a really golf centric location. It's one of the fewer smaller communities. When I say small, roughly 250,000 people live in Rochester, but the golf feeling, it runs very, very deep here, and it's really great to be back and obviously see Oak Hill front and center.
What should we know about Oak Hill?
Well, I mean, it's one of the Donald Ross great golf courses. I mean, it rates right up there with the Seminoles and Pinehursts. The golf course has been lengthened and has been strengthened, but more importantly, I think what people should make note of, Oak Hill used to be loaded with trees. Many, many moons ago, one of the members thought it would be good, and I think he meant it in the right way, but the golf course became essentially a bowling alley. The driving zones were too tight. You needed to really open up the vistas, and they've done that. Andrew Green is not really known by many people, but he was successful in being hired by the club. And I have seen, the story of Oak Hill over quite a number of years, but I know that what he has provided is really a stout golf course. This is, for those of you, who are listening to me now, this is not going to be the Byron Nelson like last week. There will not be 22 under par at Oak Hill. I can guarantee you that. I mean, if they can get it to double digit, I wouldn't be surprised that 9-10 under wins the event. It could be lower, but this is a big boy golf course. You got to bring game if you're going to play and hoist the Wanamaker Trophy at the end of the week. And I think what you're going to find is that if you start missing fairways, you're going to be under the gun. And if you hit fairways, you'll have an opportunity, to put a score on the board. But it's going to be interesting tomorrow because a lot of the big name players are in the morning wave. Scotty Scheffler's with Brooks Koepka. Right after that, you got Rory McIlroy with Justin Thomas. And then two groups after that, you've got John Rahm, Matthew Fitzpatrick, and Cameron Smith. So we're going to see some of the really top talent going out early. And it'll be interesting to see how they fare with the really cold temperatures in that morning wave. And we'll see how they fare.
Yeah, got a couple of guys dealing with injuries trying to play. Spieth has got a hand injury of some sort, a wrist injury, I think. And then Dustin Johnson, who just won the LIV tournament this past weekend. Anybody's paying attention to that, he did win it. By the way, he's won over $32 million on the LIV tour so far. How about that? But anyway, he's dealing with like a pulled muscle in his back. How will the cold temperatures affect those guys? From what you've been able to tell, are they going to be able to get around?
Well, it's hard to really evaluate somebody's injury because I don't know how much they're going to let on to what their situation is. But I will tell you this: if you have a wrist issue, the best way to avoid having more of a wrist issue is don't go into the rough here this week. Because if you go into the rough, you're going to find it very painful, maybe physically and mentally, to handle that. And you cannot. The thing about Oak Hill, which has always been the pattern, this is not a golf course you're going to come from behind on. You're not going to see somebody from 5, 6, 7 shots behind make up ground. You're going to have to play steady golf for 4 18-hole rounds. I mean, the golf course starts out with some really good holes. Initially, the first 3 holes. The final series of holes on the front 9 are extremely demanding. And then the final 3 holes are all top quality par 4s that bring you in. So if one were to say, who's to be watched, well, you clearly have to go with people like John Rahm and Scotty Scheffler. Anybody in the top 10 world rankings, But those two gentlemen have probably played the best golf consistently over, say, the last year and a half to a little bit more. What I'm going to be interesting to see is when does Rory McIlroy come out of his funk? I mean, is he ready to finally, reassert, his talent that he has after he took that sabbatical after the Masters? I mean, so it'll be interesting to see. There's a lot of interesting storylines. Clearly, there's storylines about guys who have never won a major before, like Xander Schauffele is a good example. And then there's also, as you just mentioned, about Dustin and Liv. It's going to be about, okay, now that we had the Masters and some of the Liv players did very well there, including Brooks Koepka and Phil Mickelson, well, how do the Liv players fare this time around with the PGA Championship? So I think there's going to be an interesting mix and match of different things here. But if you don't get off to a decent start and you start to trail, I would find it very hard for somebody to make up that kind of. There's just not that many good birdie holes on the East Course at Oak Hill. You have got to get the ball in play. If you do, then you certainly have a leg up on anybody else. The greens are not, at Augusta or Oakmont or a Winged Foot type character in terms of a lot of pitch, but when the pins are put into the corners, they've expanded the green footprints from what it was previously. And I think the golf course is in just fantastic shape for the event. And being that it's the second major of the year, we're going to find out whether or not the really top names will continue to be where they've been, which is at the very top of the leaderboard. And I expect them to be there really at the end of this event.
Yeah, who are you picking?
Well, I think if I said Jon Rahm, I'd probably put the voodoo curse on him because he won the Masters. But I just think that until further notice, it's really him and Scottie Scheffler. I mean, Curtis Strange alluded to this in his commentary about where the world of professional golf is. Both of these guys have separated themselves. I think there's a 1 and a 2, and then there's a drop considerably from 2 to 3, and then McIlroy is somewhere in that mix. Maybe a little bit lower. Cam Smith is right up there near the top. I don't expect a Sean McKeel or a Jason Duffner type champion, as has happened with the two previous PGA championships here. I do think that the chalk has been strong, and I think these two guys will, if they're not in it at the end, I would be really, really dismayed because I think they've played the best golf for a long period of time right now.
All right, sir. They go off in the morning. Button up and buckle up, and we look forward to having you with us tomorrow and Friday to break it all down for us, 6:30, those two nights. Look forward to talking to you again then.
Phil, it's always a pleasure.
Yes, sir. Thank you, MJ. Bye-bye. MJ Ward, one-time Gamecock sports writer for the newspaper over at USC student back in the day, has gone on to greatness covering the PGA Tour all around the world, and we appreciate him being with us at the majors, just like when we have George Bryan on Fridays breaking down the golf world. Love having MJ with us as well, giving us his take because he's out there practically every week, but definitely with all the majors, rubbing elbows with these players and with their representatives and keeping up with what they have going on. Okay, we're going to hit a break here on Sports Talk, come back and give it the recruiting report, and then we'll go over a few other notes. If you want to squeeze in a call, we might be able to squeeze in a call or two. And then SC Wild. Major Billy Downer, been preparing for this for about 2 weeks to give you his recommendations and his forewarnings about boating on Memorial Day weekend coming up.
Life, it has its ups and downs. Sometimes it's little things like hitting every red light or dropping your cell phone. Maybe it's the bills, rent, or pressure at work. But when it comes to the South Carolina Education Lottery, you should never feel like playing will solve everything. The lottery is a game. It's played for fun. So set a dollar amount. Expect not to win and make sure responsibilities, family, friends, and work come first. Visit playresponsiblysc.com.
George Bryant here with Tsunami Bar Sports, and wow, Tsunami Robbie, there is now an amazing technology that you can use when you train receiving large game without having to endure pain. Please explain.
George, that is the magic combination. I have 3 simple words to define that entire concept. Stimulation, not annihilation. Regardless of your training goals, there is a level of stimulation that is optimal for your desired gains. Tsunami Bar's flexible bar technology meets these demands because the user determines the level of stimulation with the amount of speed and force they impart into the bar or training device.
Hey, this is Phil Kornbluth. The Tsunami Bar is a terrific training device, whether you're working on your fitness or your golf game. It's convenient, it's easy to use, and you won't feel beat up afterwards. Be sure to click on the digital ad on SportsTalkSC.com and get 5% off any order using promo code BBB5. Don't wait. Order today.
Hi, this is Major Billy Downer, and coming up tonight at 7:30, it's another edition of SC Wild from the Department of Natural Resources on the Sports Talk Media Network.
Hi, folks. This is Mike Morgan. I want to tell you about an exciting new product from my friends at Vision Air Solutions. Staying healthy in my line of work is so critical, and probably in yours as well. A large factor in all that is making sure we're breathing in healthy and safe air every day. That's where Vision Air Solutions comes in. They make sure your home has air purification for all the air pollution you can't see. Viruses, mold, bacteria, stale odors, cooking smells, and volatile organic compounds. They make sure your home is full of clean air and also offer HVAC duct cleaning and sanitation as well. Make sure you and your family are breathing clean air today by giving Vision Air Solutions a call today. 803-220-1811. That's 803-220-1811. Tell them Mike sent you.
Parents ask, what's the best way to save for college? I'm State Treasurer Curtis Loftus, and my answer is always open a Future Scholar 529 college savings account. It's easy. You can get started online with any amount. It's flexible to adapt to your child's college dreams. And you can deduct 100% of your contributions from the South Carolina state tax return. So what are you waiting for? Go to futurescholar.com and see why it's the smart, easy way to save for college. futurescholar.com.
It's good time for the recruiting report, but tell me when is it not a good time for the recruiting report here on Sports Talk. Brought to you by Seawell's Roast Beef Thursday. May have to bolt out to Seawell's tomorrow. In fact, I think I will. My good friend, Arch Fowler Jr., Bennettsville, South Carolina, has got his Athlon magazines to give to me. Every year he gives me Athlon football preview books. Seawell's might be a good place to go to dine. What do you think? Roast beef Thursday tomorrow, roast beef, chicken. What else we got, Pat?
Ooh, and fried pork chops, which are outstanding. Then, of course, don't forget all the local veggies and fixings you can handle. Farmers right now around the state are getting all those fresh crops out there, so you have plenty of good veggies, salad bar, and dessert.
Listen to you giving a shout-out to the farmers.
Love my farmers. I'll actually be in Newberry this weekend. Little shout out anybody. There's an ag and art tour in Newberry. It's been going on all month, but this weekend I'll be out at a buddy of mine's farm. So it's a good time, good thing. Take kids out, get yourselves over to Newberry.
Well, you mean it's like this is open for everybody? You tell everybody to come to your buddy's farm? Does he know you're inviting the entire state to come to his farm? What if thousands of people show up?
I think they would love it, actually.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah, his brand is Highbrow Beef. It's over in Newberry, Saturday 10 to 4, Sunday 1 to 5. Come on out.
Okay. And if you need the very best in the catering business, you know that's Seawell's. You don't need me to tell you that again. It is Seawell's. And their phone number is 803-771-7385. And they are located at 1125 Rosewood Drive, right across from State Fairgrounds in Columbia. The website is SeawellsCateringSC.com. Checked in on defensive end Dylan Stewart of Washington and South Carolina, of course, all over him, been all over him for a while. Talked to his coach, Mike Hunter. Gamecock recruiter Sterling Lucas was by a couple of weeks ago. They'll have a chance to come back in for another visit before the month is over. The Gamecocks, a program that's on his short list, and the coach says that he loves South Carolina. He loves everything that they offered at South Carolina. The fan base, he said, things like that. Nothing has changed with him from that standpoint. He said, in fact, maybe the bond is growing even stronger for South Carolina. 3 of his official visits are set. They are with Georgia, the 2nd, Ohio State, the 16th, and South Carolina, 23rd. Penn State, Michigan, Alabama, Tennessee, Miami, Oregon, or others who might land dates. This new NCAA rule, of course, gives the players unlimited number of official visits, but the coach doesn't believe Stewart wants to expand his list all that much. The coach said he thinks he's going to limit the schools he's really interested in. He's not wanting to do a whole bunch of visits, and he doesn't want to make a quick decision either. Don't look for a decision this summer. Look for a decision maybe after the season, all the way up maybe to the early signing period in December. His parents, Stewart's parents, are going to play a big role in the decision-making process. That's who he kind of leans on. He talks to his coach a good bit for advice, but it's his parents who he really leans on the most. Stewart made several visits to USC the last 2 years, including for a camp, spring games, and a junior day, coming off a junior season in which he recorded 16 sacks. USC target running back Peyton Lewis said in an article on 24/7 Sports, he now plans to make his decision by the end of this month and not in July. So that's like in the next couple of weeks at the latest. He has official visits to USC and Tennessee set for June. He also has Alabama, Georgia, Penn State, and Florida on his short list. But this one, USC and Tennessee have been the top 2. This one may be coming to a head. Georgia quarterback coach Mike Bobo will be in Findlay, Ohio tonight to watch 2025 quarterback Ryan Montgomery throw. Clemson quarterback coach Garrett Riley will be in on Thursday, tomorrow. Gamecocks quarterback coach Dowell Loggins is due in next week. Today, Penn State was in, and they came in by helicopter and landed on an adjacent field next to the football field. Show-offs. USC offered 2025 linebacker DJ McClary of Jersey City, New Jersey, 2026 tight end Kendra Harrison. Get this kid's size in the 26th class. He's 6'7", 239 out of Reidsville, North Carolina. Former Clemson place kicker Liam Boyd is transferring to North Carolina. He is a native of North Carolina. Wilson wide receiver Jerome Waiters offered by Charlotte. Somerville wide receiver Yannick Smith offered by East Carolina. Now to basketball. Clemson is on the short list with 6'9", Dallas Thomas out of Little Rock, Arkansas. Arkansas, LSU, Missouri, and Memphis also there. Clemson assistant Sean Dixon has been heading up the recruitment. They offered him back in March. He says he's been talking to Dixon a lot, likes what he sees from the Clemson program, been watching Clemson, he said, since he was young. And so now he's focused on these 5 final schools, and he's going to take a few visits before making his commitment announcement. And he is focused on those 5. He plans on visiting Clemson, LSU, and Memphis soon, and then committing in July. And we'll see what Clemson does there. It'd be a heck of a pickup if they can bring him in. There you go with the recruiting report tonight, brought to you by Seawells. All right, let's see if there's anything else I want to tell you here before we welcome in Major Downer for another edition of SC Wild. And I think we've covered everything, to be quite honest with you.
I got a quick note for you, Phil. We mentioned this last week while you were on vacation, but I think you'll like it. On3.com does a great job of tracking the portal, how many players have entered. This is purely out of the FCS, so I'm sorry, FBS, not FCS. As of right now, 2,658 players are still in the portal. 51%, 1,365 to be exact, have committed. Another 2% have withdrawn. So that means there are still 47% roughly of all the players who have entered the portal. This is just football. Currently do not have a home. That's quite a few.
What are they going to do?
That's what we were trying to ponder last week. No clue.
Yeah. That's the risk you run if you're not one of those surefire transfer targets? Can you find a better place? You think the grass is greener? Not always. Okay, SC Wild with the grass is always green coming up next here on Sports Talk.
Friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
And here's tonight's forecast. Cloudy overnight with low dipping to 63. Big change from today's heat to tomorrow as our temp rises, but to a high of only 70. We'll also have a 60% chance of some showers greeting your drive to work for Friday. We start off cloudy and maybe wet, but the sun will break through for a nice afternoon with a high of 82. Brian Leonard with your On Point local weather.
Parents ask, what's the best way to save for college? I'm State Treasurer Curtis Loftus, and my answer is always open a Future Scholar 529 college savings account. It's easy. You can get started online with any amount. It's flexible to adapt to your child's college dreams. And you can deduct 100% of your contributions from the South Carolina state tax return. So what are you waiting for? Go to FutureScholar.com and see why it's the smart, easy way to save for college. FutureScholar.com.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters reporting Montana has become the first state to enact a complete ban on TikTok. Republican Governor Greg Gianforte signed the legislation Wednesday, and it's scheduled to take effect next January. The measure is more sweeping than bans put in place in nearly half the states and by the U.S. federal government that prohibit TikTok on government devices. The law is expected to face legal challenges and become a testing ground for whether a TikTok-free America is possible. An 1,100-year-old Hebrew Bible that is one of the world's oldest surviving biblical manuscripts has sold for $38 million in New York. The auction house Sotheby's identifies it as the Codex Sassoon. On Wall Street, the Dow up by 408 points. The Nasdaq rose 157. More details at srnnews.com.
There's more than one kind of customer when it comes to Shooter's Choice. First, there's the customer who knows what's what, has a pretty good idea of what he or she likes. You're looking for a few things. First, a good selection. Yep, Shooter's Choice has a huge selection. Firearms, ammo, accessories, optics, even gun safes. You're looking for good and fair pricing. Oh yeah, Shooters has been around as your local stop forever because they treat you right. And how about customer service? Absolutely the best you'll find anywhere. The folks who work at Shooter's Choice are shooters and hunters just like you. They know their products. They can answer your question. And that brings me to the other type of customer. Someone maybe more like me. No expert for sure, but wants to learn from the right people. I don't need some big box store guy who works in the shoe department half a week, sporting goods the other half. I need the experts at Shooter's Choice who will treat me right, answer my questions as simple as they might be. They'll make my experience excellent. Online, it's shooterschoicesc.com or visit them in person on Sunset Boulevard in West Columbia. Make it your first choice, your best choice. Make it Shooter's Choice.
Are you getting a tax refund? You've been waiting to put those new hardwood floors in? Or is it that luxury vinyl plank that's so hot right now? It's time to call the flooring department. Stretch your dollars here. The flooring department doesn't have a huge multi-million-dollar showroom to pay for. They keep your prices down and your quality up. Look, we all buy from the same manufacturers, so why pay more? Online at theflooringdepartment.com or call 951-3567. That's 951-FLOR.
Hey, honey, I know you're taking some meds for cholesterol. I was reading that if you're on these medicines, you should also be taking some CoQ10.
Actually, our pharmacist mentioned that to me already. He called me the other day, and we went through each of our medications together.
Really? He called you?
Yeah, he asked if I was having any side effects, recommended supplements that could help me, and let me know the risk of mixing certain drugs.
Wow, I'm happy to know the pharmacist.
True Pharmacy, 1628 Charleston Highway, 3217 Divine Street, or visit truerxsc.com.
Hi, this is General Manager here at The Point. One of the most valuable lessons I've learned is to partner with great people. To that end, I'm looking to partner in the upcoming months with like-minded business owners, people who want to grow their respective businesses. Would you consider meeting with me in the very near future to discuss how The Point can partner with you so that you can exceed your own expectations in the coming year? Let's sit down over a glass of tea, a cup of coffee. Let's talk about how your business and my business can work together to meet our collective goals. I'm not looking simply for advertisers. I can find them by simply cold calling people a few times a week. What I'm looking for are business partners who share the vision that I have for my own small business. That vision is very simple. Local businesses need to support local businesses. period. If you have an interest in telling people about your business via the radio, let's make it happen affordably and local. Call me directly, 563-8558, 563-8558. I'd appreciate the chance to meet with you. Maybe we can help each other.
Now on Sports Talk, it's SC Wild with Major Billy Downer of the Department of Natural Resources. Major Downer is here to take your questions about the great outdoors in South Carolina. Give him a call at 888-898-2525. It's SC Wild from DNR on the Sports Talk Radio Network.
Always a pleasure to have the Major Billy Downer with us here on Sports Talk, another edition of SC Wild from the Department of Natural Resources here in the state of South Carolina. Major, great to have you with us once again, and I've been promoting the fact that tonight you want to focus on a very important topic, something that's always heavy on your mind, that is boating safety in the state of South Carolina. You talk about it often, but you really try to hit it hard these particular weeks leading up to Memorial Day weekend.
Absolutely, Phil. It's good to be with you tonight. I'm mobile tonight, so I apologize. But, yeah, with 330-plus thousand boats in South Carolina, as we always say, it's hard not to find a boat in the backyard just driving up and down the roads across our state. From the mountains to the mountains, in somebody's backyard, with a yacht boat, center console, or a big old a side console, even a pleasure cruise, doesn't matter. They're out there. Everybody's got one, it seems like. And Memorial Day weekend, of course, will begin the 100 deadliest days of summer, as we call it. Hate to put a bad light on the 100 days of summer, because summertime is such a wonderful time with sunshine, and the water's a great place to just relax and be in a state that has, 30% of our state's water. So a lot of opportunity to boat and enjoy the outdoors. But from Memorial Day through Labor Day is the time when we see accidents on our waterways and our roadways go to higher levels than all the rest of the year combined. So the Department of Natural Resources is partnering with the Highway Patrol and the Department of Public Safety to support safety messages throughout the deadly days of summer, from Memorial Day through Labor Day. And actually going to be doing a joint BUI-DUI campaign during July 4th. But as we approach Memorial Day, this is that show that we focus solely on boater education, boater safety, to talk about the things that people need to be thinking about as they go on the water in the upcoming weekend. I was down in the Charleston area last week and enjoyed some time on the water myself. Got to see some areas that I have not seen before on a very nice boat. Enjoyed a little boating myself. Got to see a lot of people out there. Charleston is one of those areas that when it's warm in March, the boats come out, the bathing suits get on, and people hit the sand. They just do. I thought Charleston boats 12 months out the year.
Yeah.
If it's warm, people are outside boating. I was crossing the bridge downtown, the Folly Bridge there, right there across the Ashley, and there were boats left and right as far as you could see. I mean, the harbor's full of boats on a weekend on last Saturday, just tremendous boating traffic. But not to say there's not boating traffic on Lake Murray, Lake Marion, Kiowee, Greenwood, and Hartwell. It's across the state, all the way to Wiley. So a lot of boats out there. But let's hit a few of the basics, Phil, we always talk about. As we prepare for the Memorial Day weekend, things to be thinking about. Before your boat ever heads down to the water, check your registration. We'll talk about that. Check the sticker on the side of the boat. Make sure your registration is up to date. Helping a friend of mine just today, getting a boat registered. One of the things that people forget in the new registration process, we went from 3 years to every year. We used to be every 3 years, now it's every year. If you purchase a boat from someone, you're responsible for paying the taxes with the county where you reside before you bring that paperwork to DNR. You got to have proof you paid taxes on the boat. So you take the bill of sale on the back of the titles of the bill of sale of the county with boat information and the motor information to your county auditor, and they're going to assess the taxes. The county assessor, they'll assess the taxes that you're owed, and you'll walk across the hallway or wherever your county is to the treasurer's office and pay your taxes. Take your receipts, and you put a copy of those receipts with your boating application paperwork, take a DNR, and then you will be able to get your boat registered in your name. Remember, we pay taxes now once a year, as we always have, so that you can register your boat once a year. And your registration, when you pay your taxes to the county, the registration of the boat is automatically sent to DNR, and we send you a renewal. In the case of renewals, when it's a brand new boat you bought, you got to take the paperwork to DNR. But once the boat's registered in your name, every year you pay taxes, the county lets us know you pay taxes, and we send you the renewal.
Quick question. From somebody who's never bought a boat or owned a boat, that would be me. Do boats depreciate in value like cars do?
That's a great question. In the last year, they actually appreciate in value because people could not buy boats. So used boats went through the roof, particularly boats like Scouts that are built in South Carolina. So many boats built in the state: Scout, Pioneer, Key West, Sportsman, Sea Hunt. All those boats are made in this state. Got a lot of boats made here, but Scout got so far behind in their orders because so many people, again, with COVID, that post-COVID, everybody was dumping money into boats. They couldn't go other places. There weren't enough boats out there. So people are ordering boats. Well, all of a sudden, you could go buy a used boat, and people would pay more money to get the used boat so they could get the boat out and use it. But the guy selling the boat couldn't go buy a new boat to replace it. He's going to have to wait a year. But yes, boats do generally depreciate over time. And boats, just for interest sake, Phil, do have like your car has a VIN number, a boat has a whole ID number, just like that VIN permanently affixed to the boat that you can track that boat. So we talked about buying and selling boats on the show before, but so registration, check your registration, make sure it's up to date. Check your safety equipment on board. Make sure you got good life jackets. Check them. Make sure they weren't stuffed under the seat or got wet, got mildewed over the last year of the wintertime. No holes or rips or tears in them. Make sure they're in good working order. Make sure it's your fire extinguisher. If your boat's required to have one, remember, your boat's required to have a fire extinguisher if you have a permanent gas tank, as in a gas tank that's inside the hull, or it's too big to throw out of the boat, 10, 12 gallons too big to throw out the boat, or it's permanently affixed to your hull. So you got to have a fire extinguisher. Depending on the length of your boat, how many fire extinguishers. Generally, a 1B1 will handle most boats that you were talking about. The B1, make sure it's green. Make sure the button on top's green to push in. Or make sure the dial that the register is registered in the green are good. Again, doesn't take $20, less than $20 to go to the store and buy a new one. It's a lot better than a $105, $110 ticket for a bad fire extinguisher. Because if you need that fire extinguisher on the water, there's nothing that'll put that fire out faster than that fire extinguisher. Water won't always do it because there ain't fuel involved or oil involved. So, registration, PFDs, life jackets, check the condition of those. Fire extinguisher. Make sure you look for your registration card, that it's on board. When you got your registration, make sure your registration card's there and it's the correct one. Sometimes if you have multiple boats, people put the wrong registration card in the wrong boat. Make sure it matches your boat. Registration numbers on it. Look at the side of your boat, side of your hull, 3-inch letters. Make sure those match what's on your car. And make sure the expiration date matches that car. Past that, make sure you got a sound device. If you got a horn, make sure your horn works. If not, a whistle will suffice in most cases as a sound device. But you have to have a sound device on board. As we talked about, if you're going out on the water and you're going to be out there for a long part of the day, you're coming back at night, make sure that your running lights work. Your running lights are your bow light, which is the front lights, red and green, and the all-around light, the stern light on the rear. Most important light on that boat is that all-around light, because that's the light that people can see 360 degrees. Now, if you're in a pontoon that has a bimini top and your light is up top on the bimini, make sure the bimini is not flapped up over it so you can't see the light. Or make sure the light's not bent backwards, that it is upright so that folks can see the light from 360 degrees. Important things to do. But make sure your lights work. And, good idea, have extra bulbs on board. Because so many times people go out there to the fireworks shows or whatever, or they get out in the water and the light was working and all of a sudden, boop, it goes out. Well, it goes out, it's not any good anymore. And people can't see you. Doesn't matter what the excuse was. Doesn't matter that it was working. Have a replacement so that if it goes out, you can fix it and you can stay out in that water, enjoy your time, and know that others can see you. So those are the basics of things you need to be checking. You know, as you put your boat in the water, it sounds funny, but the plug in your boat, make sure the plug's in. Make sure the plug's in good shape. It's not rotten. And it won't let water pass in your boat, under the boat, in the bilge, whatever. If you got a bilge pump on a bigger boat, make sure your bilge pump, that's the pump in the back, that pumps the excess water out, that it works. Simple things that you can check before you get on the water. So again, registration card, life jackets, sound device, fire extinguisher, and your lights. Those are really, really good things to check before you get on the water. Now, as we get out on the water over Memorial Day, life jackets, you can have counted, you can check them. But before you go on the water with people, make sure you count how many's on board and you have enough life jackets on board for everybody on your boat and that they're the proper size. If you've got children under age 10, children under age 5, make sure that they have life jackets that fit them. Now, in South Carolina, if a boat is under 16 foot in length and a child is under age 12, that child is required to have a life jacket on at all times. Under 16 feet, under age 12. But as I've said time and time again, an infant or a toddler should have a life jacket on, whether it's a long, because they can get away from you in a heartbeat, jump off that boat. And the life jacket needs to fit them. So make sure you have the right number of life jackets, everybody on board, and they can fit the intended user. Don't expect an adult life jacket, no matter how much you zip, you tighten it up, strap it up, to hold a young child, because the force of that impact in the water will force them out of that life jacket in a hurry, and then they're out there swimming for their life, and you've got nothing to help them. So those are things to keep in mind. Life jackets, make sure you got enough for everybody on board and they can fit the intended user. Make sure there's somewhere people can get to them. Those great little bags that zip up before are great to protect your life jackets, keep it in good order. But make sure they're in a seat you can get to them, they're not locked up. So there's an emergency, you can get to that life jacket. People that have incidents and accidents happen, boat runs over your boat flips. It's hard to get to the life jackets when they're locked up under a seat. One more thing on life jackets. Any boat 16 foot or longer is required to have one throwable device on board, a Type 4. That can be the square seat cushion, as they call it, with the head 2 straps on it, or it can be a ring buoy. But you need to have a throwable device so that you can render immediate aid to someone if they fall overboard and don't have a life jacket on. It doesn't have to have a rope attached to it. And some of the myths, you don't have to have a paddle in your boat. Now, is the paddle a good idea? Sure it is. No matter how big your boat is, it's better to have something to paddle with than nothing. But that's not the law. So, past that, once you get on the water, let's go to the next stage. Now we're on the water with all the great folks out there in South Carolina enjoying the waterways. What are the top 3 things that we talk about every year that are the top 3 causes of accidents? Number 1, failure to maintain a proper lookout. What does that mean? That means that you as the operator, the captain of the boat, fail to look around, be defensive, and look at what's going on around you. You fail to maintain proper lookout. You're paying attention to somebody in the boat, you're listening to a good story, you're looking at your phone, and when there's as many people going to be out in the water on Memorial Day as there is, you need to be keeping your head on a swivel. Because I want you looking if my kids fall off of a tube, or if my grandkids fall off a tube, or if the wife falls off the skis, or what have you. You want people paying attention so that they can react and miss you and miss other boats. Because, again, people do dumb things. People jerk out in front of you. People come around the curve head on. If you're not paying attention, accidents can happen. So fail to maintain proper lookout. Number 2 is operator inattention. It's sort of the same line, but operator inattention could be simply just, not paying attention for a minute. It lacks. Again, we talked about the sunshine, the heat, the water, the sound of that motor on the water. All those things dull your senses. And when it dulls your senses, you can just become kind of complacent. Stay alert. Look around. Number 3, speed can be a factor. Speed can be a factor. And speed happens when you get around people where you're going too fast for conditions that we talk about on the road. And what does that mean on the water? If it's congested, don't go fast. Slow down. If you're at night, slow down. I was on a boat the other night, operated a boat. He had a FLIR, a forward-looking infrared radar on his boat, a personal boat. And he used that to look out for things and objects on the water, like in the Charleston area, there's a lot of anchored boats and sailboats out there that sometimes the lights aren't on. And they are obstacles, and the FLIR helps you see them. But at night, you need to slow down so you can see things. You can see the cans or the channel markers, particularly when you're on the intercoastal waterway. You won't be able to see those markers, and they're always lit up. But any kind of obstacle in the water, slow down at night. I know as I get older, I can go ahead and tell you, my night vision ain't as good as it used to be. And I'm perfectly willing to admit that. So sometimes you need to slow down when you're on the water. To keep your, so you can see what's going on around you. Of course, when we talk about speed, wake zones come to mind. Wake zones are around areas of high congestion, landings, fueling areas. There's a reason why we don't want you dragging a wake through the wake zone, because you could cause damage to boats, hurt someone trying to fuel a boat. When their boat gets slammed against the dock, they could fall out, get hurt, cause damage, and you're responsible for that damage if you cause damage like that with your wake. People think that slowing down, keeping the bow up, and riding that big wake through there is good enough. No wake means no wave behind the boat, no white. It's a ripple. Yes, you can barely go, but it's the speed, the slowest speed that you can still maintain steerage and control where your boat's going. That's what no wake means. Now, before we leave the show tonight, we're absolutely going to talk about alcohol. Alcohol is something that people enjoy on the water. Now, South Carolina does not have an open container law on the boat. Let's be clear about that. There's nothing in our law that prevents you from having an open container of beer on a boat. I'm always getting the stick question about alcohol, liquor. Well, South Carolina liquor laws tell you there's 2 places you can have liquor open. That's in a place of business, it's licensed to sell it, or in your home. Past that, I don't get into that argument. But beer on the water. You can have beer on the water, open on the water, what have you. The driver can have a beer in his hand while he's driving the boat. Now, does that make a lot of sense? Probably not. if you're drinking at all, you're adding alcohol to your body, which means you're going to be affecting your body in some way. What that point is, and everybody wants to go, well, what's the legal limit? Well, it's 0.08, just like on the road. But what does that look like for everybody? Well, it's different for everybody. It doesn't matter if you're 200 pounds, 300 pounds, 165 pounds. Everybody gets affected by alcohol differently. It depends on the absorption rate and all kind of factors. The big rule is, if you're going to be on the water and you're going to be consuming alcohol in your boat, everybody else is going to be on the boat, have somebody on the boat that's a designated driver that's going to operate that boat and not drink so that they can maintain control, they can maintain proper lookout, be attentive, and watch their speed. All those things we talked about. Big, big factor there. Because accidents are preventable. That's why they call it an accident. I mean, they are preventable. You can prevent them from happening. And simple things. If you're going to go out in the water Memorial Day weekend and you're going to enjoy some alcohol, that's fine. But have someone driving the boat that's not. And make sure it's somebody that knows how to drive the boat. So many times in these big events, we see men, I say men, ladies don't mean this by any disrespect, but guys will have that boat and they'll shove their wife behind the wheel who has no idea how to operate that boat or the girlfriend. And they get thrown in there because they haven't been drinking, they hadn't drank as much as everybody else, and they don't know how to operate the boat. Put somebody behind the wheel that knows how to operate the boat, because that could be a problem also. So just things to think about as we look at Memorial Day weekend coming up. We will have courtesy boat inspections across the state. These are basically, we do these at big public landings across the state to give people an opportunity to get inspected by an officer without a ticket. We're going to check your boat before you go in the water, and we're going to point out things that we see that need to be replaced or fixed, or we may say you're good to go. But it's a great idea. They're free. It takes a little bit of your time, and I'm going to give you a list, a couple of those places on the 27th, Saturday Memorial Day weekend on Lake Hartwell at Twin Lakes, and the Highway 72 landing is going to be a courtesy boat inspection there. And those generally are around 12 to around lunchtime, around 10 o'clock in the morning to 1 o'clock in the afternoon. People start going out in the lake. In Region 2 on Lake Wiley, there's going to be one at Ebenezer Park on the 27th. Lake Murray Dam, Region 3 on 5/27 on Saturday. There'll be one there. Down in the Low Country on the 27th at Little River, there will be a courtesy boat inspection. When we get to Memorial Day, 29th, Region 1, there'll be one at 12 Mile on Lake Hartwell. There'll be one at Ebenezer Park again on Lake Wiley. There'll be one at the Lake Murray Dam again. And there'll be one at Waipu Cut Landing in the Charleston area in Region 4 as well. And these are, again, courtesy boat inspections are free. Opportunity for you to get your boat inspected by an officer. They'll check off what you have missing. You can correct that before you go in the water and prevent you from having an opportunity to get a ticket later that afternoon. Just make sure things are right before you go in the water. Again, takes a few minutes. You don't have to do them, but we're offering those landings I listed over Memorial Day weekend. So that wraps up most of my talk for tonight.
That was fantastic, because you got about 30 seconds. Give everybody out there in 30 seconds one final piece of advice about being safe on the water.
Absolutely. So the biggest thing I can tell you on the water is don't forget life jackets save lives. Have enough on your boat. Make sure they fit the intended user, and make sure they're where you can get to them. And before you go in the water, tell somebody where you're going. Let them know when you were planning to return. So if you don't come back by that time, they know to start looking. We don't wait too late to start looking for you.
Major, great stuff. If you can't learn from that, if you're a boater, you plan on being on the boat on the holiday. If you can't learn something from that, you just don't want to learn. That is great stuff. We thank you so much. And Major Downer has gone on down the road. Thank you, Major Downer. DNR, SC Wild here on Sports Talk. Hopefully you paid attention, and hopefully you learned something, and hopefully that'll be of use to you moving forward on the water this summer in South Carolina. Please be safe and have a great night. We will see you tomorrow night here on Sports Talk.
Someone will be right with you. The Point.
WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
Grills, outdoor kitchens, and fireplaces. Spring Sizzle starts with Bart. This is 107 The Point.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting. While negotiators continue to work to resolve the impasse over the debt ceiling, President Biden is heading to Japan for the G7 summit. White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan says the debt talks could not be put off, so President Biden scrapped the back of his trip to Asia.
The work that we need to do bilaterally with Australia through the Quad and with the Pacific Islands is work that can be done at a later date, whereas the final stretch of negotiations over the debt limit or over the budget cannot be done at a later date. And that default can't be postponed, but the trip can be postponed.
House Speaker Kevin McCarthy says the window to reach a deal is about to close, partly because President Biden refused to meet with him for months.
Our timeline is short. This is what I wanted to avoid 105 days